Hi guys, we are here to take notes over sections 5D and 5E in our unit here on equations. And so what we're going to do here is our target is to be able to determine if a given value makes the equation true, and then to solve our one-step equations as we've been kind of practicing all year long, really. So for the first section here, the question is, or what this tells us is, does the variable satisfy the equation? This is the 5D part of our notes. We want to be able to determine if a value that we're given satisfies or makes the equation true. So just a couple of reminders. These are algebraic equations because they have an equal sign, which makes them an equation, and they have a variable which makes them algebraic. So they're algebraic equations. All right. So what we're doing here is we're going to see if 42, if we substitute that in for A, if that makes the statement true. So we're going to take 15 plus 42, substituting the value in for the variable, equals 57. And we have 5 plus 2 is 7, and 4 plus 1 is 5, so sure enough, that is true. 42 does make this a true statement. Let's look at our next one. We've got b minus 14 equals 20, and we want to check that with a b of 26. So we're going to say is 26 minus 14 equal to 20. And I think most of us will realize that 20 minus 6 would be 20. So 26 minus 14 is definitely not going to work. All right, next equation. 6c equals 84 for c equal to 14. So remember that when we have the coefficient right next to the variable with no operation symbol, that's multiplication. So this is 6 times 14. This is another way to write 6 times 14 equals 84. And so I'm just going to go over here and do my little multiplication, although I will remind you that you can use calculators for this unit. So sure enough, 6 times 14 does equal 84, so that one's true. Be careful on this one. This is d divided by 15 equals 45. And so we're saying if we take a 3 and substitute it in for 15, this d, does 3 divided by 15 equal 45? Well, 3 divided by 15 does not equal 45. 3 times 15 would equal 45, but 3 divided by 15 does not equal 45, so that one's not true. All right, now for the 5e section. The 5e section is to solve algebraic equations. In other words, now instead of being given the answer, we want to find the answer. And so just a reminder that our steps are to isolate the variable. That's the goal of our little algebra game. And we do that by doing opposite or inverse operations to both sides of the equal sign. Remember to do it to both sides. Okay. So here we want to isolate e, and what's happening to it is we're adding in 18, so we're going to subtract 18 from both sides. Adding 18 and subtracting 18 are opposite operations, they cancel each other out, and we have e equals 35 minus 18, which is equal to 17. So e is equal to 17. What we're saying is if I put 17 back in this equation, 17 plus 18 would be 35. We could check it that way and make sure we did the right work. Over here we've got f. We want to isolate it, so we're going to do the opposite of what's happening to it. So we're going to add in 52 and 21 hundredths. I like to think of this as money because it just makes everything make a little more sense to me. So the opposite of subtracting 5221 is adding 5221, so those are eliminated. We're left with f over here. And then we are going to be adding 123 and 4/10 plus 52 and 21 hundredths. I'm going to put a 0 here for a placeholder and add that up. 0 plus 1 is 1. 4 plus 2 is 6. Bring that decimal point down. 3 plus 2 is 5. 5 plus 2 is 7. 1. So f is 175 and 61 hundredths. All right, then we've got some fraction work here. So we've got 3/4 times g equals 5/6. Now, the opposite of multiplying 3/4 times g would be dividing by 3/4. So we can show divide by 3/4 on both sides, or you might remember that dividing by a fraction is the same as multiplying by its reciprocal. So you might have just said, oh, I'm going to multiply both sides by 4/3. You might have recognized that right off the bat, and that's okay to do that way. All right, so either way I do this, whether I'm dividing by 3/4, that's the opposite of multiplying by 3/4, or multiplying by a number's reciprocal is also the opposite. And so I have G left over here, and I'm going to then have to do this problem, 5/6 times 4/3. Look for places to simplify, and I don't see any. Oh yes, I do. So both of these divide by 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. Multiply 5 times 2 is 10. 3 times 3 is 9. If I change that to an improper fraction, it is an improper fraction. If I change it to a mixed number, 9 divides into 10 one time. That's my whole number. We can only take 9 out of 10 once. The leftover is the numerator. That would leave us 1, and the denominator is 9. And so our answer should be G equals 1 1/9. Alrighty, then over here we've got H divided by 2 equals 16. So the opposite of dividing by 2 is multiplying both sides by 2. Dividing by 2 and multiplying by 2 are opposites. They cancel each other out, so we're just left with H over here. And then 16 times 2 is 32. And so our answer there is H equals 32. So that's 5D and E, guys. That'll conclude your notes for this section.